Hello and welcome to the Masters Swimming Podcast, available on all the major podcast platforms and on YouTube. I'm Joe Malone, and joining me this week is Niklas Hedegaard, former Team Denmark swimmer racing in 2 European Championships in the 50 and the 100 breaststroke, and now co-founder of TheMagic5, custom fit goggles for swimmers all shapes and sizes. So welcome to the podcast, Niklas.
Thank you, Joe. It's nice to be here.
So you're in Denmark at the moment. Whereabouts in Denmark are you?
We just got some offices here in Copenhagen, so I'm actually sitting in a new office space in Copenhagen. And
Brilliant. You have a great view there. The sun's shining out of your window.
right, that's nice for a change.
Yeah. No, we were just saying before we went on recording. It's raining here in the UK as ever, but you've actually got a week of sunshine out there, which sounds quite nice.
It is. Only thing that could make it better is hitting the open waters and enjoying that out there as well.
Of course, yeah. Nothing does beat the water, of course. So look, let's talk about the Magic Five then. The Magic Five, the journey, well, as far as we're concerned, started in 2017. You might tell us it started before then in terms of the idea and all that kind of stuff. But we'll get onto all the specifics shortly. But my first question for you is, why the Magic Five? Why is it called the Magic Five?
It's a really good question and something that we hear quite often, honestly. A lot of people wonder about if it's because of the angles of the goggles or if there's five co-founders or whatever that might be. But truthfully, it's because from the onset we kind of imagined the company being able to do more than just swimming goggles. So we didn't want a name that was closely associated with water or with swimming or anything like that. And then we stepped back and said, what is it actually that we're doing with the goggles? Well, we are not reinventing the swimming goggle completely. It's not like when you look at them, you're like, oh, what are those? They don't look anything like swimming goggles. So we actually came up with a name based off that we take a product and 95% of it remains the same. You still have your elastic band, your lens in the front and your nose piece and all that. But then we change a small part of it, that 5%. And that makes all the difference. Those are the magic 5%. And then for the swimming goggles, it would be the fit of the gasket, the shape of the gasket, and of course the size of the nose piece. Those two, we're able to change those to mold it to every person out there, and then that really makes the whole difference. So that's really the long-winded explanation for the name.
No, that's really interesting. And again, I would have probably guessed what you said at first, that a lot of people guess in terms of like possible five co-founders or that kind of stuff. Your journey began in 2017, but when did it really begin with you and your co-founders? Is this something that you talked about for years throughout your careers, or was it just something that you sparked an idea and just went with it straight away?
So my two co-founders both had a background in amateur triathlons. They were racing for trying to race an Ironman, both of them. And me being the swimmer um, among their friends, they came to me and was like, Niklas, we can't find goggles that fit. What do you do with goggles? And I told them about these Swedish goggles that you assemble yourself. And that's what every swimmer has to learn to love sort of through their career. And in the beginning, they're terrible. And then you sort of mold your face to fit them. But that's really what the top swimmers were using previously, right? And then they just didn't believe it. They couldn't understand how the best swimmers could be using a product that was like $7 but that was the only thing that you could really sort of adjust a little bit to fit your face, right? But then they're hard plastic cups and they're really uncomfortable. So we sat down and we said, okay, maybe there's something here. One of the co-founders, Bo, he's an engineer, so he immediately has tons of ideas
Mm.
and see things differently, and is not afraid to sort of tackle a big problem and be like, well, how do you actually make swimming goggles? I never really thought about it, using swimming goggles my whole life, but we decided to go to China and figure out how you make swimming goggles, because that's where all the goggles are made, and none of us had any experience in making goggles. So we needed to start and see how do you do this? What machinery is required? How do the other brands go about making goggles for the whole world? And that process really didn't scare us. It was more like, well, this doesn't seem too technical. It seems like that could be improved upon a little bit. And then it quickly became, well, the issue is that there's something with the fit that is not right, that you need to go to the store and you need to buy 10 goggles maybe before you can find one that sort of fits you. And then what happens if that goes out of stock or they stop producing it? Then you're back to square one. Like you have to start all over again with that process. So we wanted to do something with a fit. And then we started with a Kickstarter in 2017. Kickstarter campaign, for those of you who don't know, is a crowdfunding campaign where you put up a project, say, hey, we want to make these cool swimming goggles, but we need some help from the users in order to back it and go out and buy some equipment so that we can actually make them. And that was a huge success. And then we had to buy robots and figure out how to actually make goggles after that. Yeah.
That sounds fantastic. Just going back to the concept of the Magic 5 and that 5% being the difference. When you first went into this idea that, you know, the three of you, was it that 5% that you were focusing on, or did the concept and the name sort of come a little bit further down the line?
The name came a bit later. None of us are creative by heart, I would say. So we knew a guy that was very creative with branding and all this type of stuff, and he invited us to a meeting, and we were supposed to come up with a name, right? And he wrote down a name on a piece of paper, and then he put that face down, and no one could see it. And then we went through this whole process of discussing and figuring out, getting really to the heart of what is it that we want to do here. Well, as I said earlier, we don't want to make only swimming products. We want to have a name that is sort of broader than that. And we actually don't change the whole product, all those things that I just explained. And then by the end of it, we sort of came up with the Magic 5. And then he turned over his piece of paper and it said the Magic 5. And that was some people are just like that, you know. They have that skill, and yeah, but it sort of came later when we were making the products and all of that.
Yeah, excellent. Let's talk about the Kickstarter campaign then. So you actually reached the top 1% of businesses on the platform. I mean, you've kind of explained what Kickstarter is. Did you know straight away that Kickstarter is the place you need to go? And how quickly did you get the success on there?
So what's interesting about Kickstarter is that they have a pretty developed platform, right? They have a tons of users that are ready to adopt new technologies, new products. That's all what Kickstarter is about. You are helping fund new companies in the very, 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 very early stages. And sometimes it turns out to be a good project, and sometimes you don't get anything out of it, right? But we knew that was sort of a good fit for us because there are 10% of the Western population that swim, and a lot of them are probably early adopters and ready to try on new technology. So they would also be on Kickstarter. So we knew probably at least 10% of Kickstarter's users were going to be interested in swimming. And that was just a good match. That's a pretty good pool to take from. So a lot of people think that, well, swimming goggles is quite niche. It's not that many people that use swimming goggles, but that's just because they don't swim. They're not among that 10%. It's actually quite a lot of people. So yeah, it just seemed like a good fit for us, and the traction came pretty early, I would say. We managed to get around $120,000, I think, at the time back in 2017, and that was enough to buy the machinery that we needed, and also move to the US, which was a bigger market than Denmark, where we're all from. So that really gave us a good start, and then like if you moved a couple of months down the line, that was the time to actually produce the products. Now you have all these orders waiting, and people are just like, we want the goggles. Where the goggles at? Like, come make them for us. And that was a really fun time, just because you sort of start this project, and you know you have the idea, and you kind of know that you can do it, but then there's all these other issues that of course come up when you start a company, and you have to deal with that too. And then it's also different making a couple of prototypes and then going out and making 1,500 goggles in a short amount of time. So that was a challenge, but it was so much fun.
It sounds incredibly fun, I have to say, and congratulations for taking the idea and really doing something with it, because you know I've tried them; they're brilliant. So yeah, it's fantastic. So with Kickstarter, either people or businesses invest in this product. Do they become shareholders, or are they voluntarily giving you money?
So they voluntarily give you money, they don't become shareholders, but the way that it works is that you set up a goal from the beginning and say, hey, we need this amount of money. In our case, it was, I think, $50,000 that we set as a target. We need this. That's our threshold. Then we can buy the equipment that we need and we can actually produce the goggles. If you don't meet that threshold, if there's not enough people willing to help fund your goal, then no money is taken from anybody's account and the project doesn't get funded. So then it's just a wash and
Okay.
you can move on to something else and no one is worse off. But if it does get funded, everyone gets everyone's funds are deducted and it's transferred to you and you can start going about your business. Yeah.
Brilliant. It sounds like a brilliant platform, and again, well done for choosing that one because it's been a great success for you. You were a swimmer yourself, and you talked earlier about Swedish goggles. Did you find during your swimming career that you never quite found the right pair of goggles, that they just didn't quite fit right? It leaked. You were worried when you were diving in that they might slip off. Did you kind of always have that in your mind?
Yes, I would say that I definitely have had a lot of goggles that I couldn't wear at all. Right, they would hurt my bones around my eyes. I would get bruises. I definitely had that experience. Then you quickly stop using them, and then you sort of settle for something that sort of works for you. And I think a lot of swimmers maybe they don't question it really because it's just been a part of what swimming goggles were for you. Like, oh, they hurt and you get those goggle rings, and that's just part of the fun. Like you just gotta live with it, and yeah, they don't really question it. At least for me, that was how it was, and I never really questioned it. It was just what it was, and then it was just fun to be able to do something about it.
Absolutely, yeah. So you talked about your two co-founders, Rasmus Barford and Bo Haber. Sorry, they now live in the US, but they're originally from Denmark. And you talked about it's a bigger market over in the US. Is that really what inspired it, or did they kind of always have this dream to move out there?
It was definitely the goggles that inspired it, and so there's like 35 million Americans that swim regularly for fitness purpose. There's only 5 million people living in Denmark, so it doesn't really make sense to go out and make a still sort of a niche product or uh, for the smaller market like that. And there's so many people that live in America. Americans are great, so we
Yes.
thought, why not? Let's move over there, and then um, Charlotte and New York were the places that Rasmus and Bo moved, and it happened to be because that's where the wives could get work and stuff like that. So that was kind of a happen chance, but they were able to convince them that hey, let's move the families over there. And I stayed back here in Europe and haven't really made the move yet.
Yeah. Do you think that's something that you might do in the future?
Maybe. I kind of like Denmark though. I've lived there for a bit in Austria as well, where I was part of a professional swim team. And then now I got a girlfriend down there, and we moved back to Denmark, and kind of like it here. It's nice too.
No, that's good, and you're spreading yourself globally, which
Yeah.
is excellent. So tell us then about how it works with the three of you, and obviously there are other members of staff as well, but predominantly the three of you. Two of them are in the US, but they're in very different locations. You're over in Europe. So how does that work? You're on different time zones. Do you find it easy to collaborate?
Yes, I would say so. It's a lot of time being on the phones and being on Teams, Zoom, whatever. Spend a lot of time there. But it's I think it's has its pros and its cons. Obviously, it's very valuable to be face to face sometimes. You can discuss different things. You can get more in depth of different subjects. But it's also nice to be able to live the life that you want and not be restricted by "Hey, over here is where you have to be because your friend wants to live there." It's kind of it's more free, and I kind of like it that in today's day and age it's possible to even live in completely different places and run a company together.
Yeah.
So it's for me it works perfectly. I also don't have kids yet, so I'm able to work late at night and like in the afternoon. Don't have to pick up any kids from daycare or anything like that. So for me, it works quite well with the time difference. Maybe it will change. We'll see.
Yeah, no, it sounds perfect. Do you ever get together, the three of you, how like a few times a year or
Sure. Actually, Bo was just in Denmark a couple of days ago.
yeah?
Right now he's traveling, but he was just here helping to set up this office space, and yeah, we see each other maybe 5 to 6 times a year, I'd say. Rasmus and Bo obviously see each other a little bit more, but do get together quite often, yeah.
That's good. So you talked about your new office. Then you moved into that last week. Were you in an office before that, or were you working from home? And is this like your first office?
Working from home.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I took that. For me, COVID was no change at all. I was like, oh, now everyone else gets to experience what I'm experiencing every day. But yeah, I've actually enjoyed working from home too. It doesn't bother me at all. Again, you can structure your day how you want it. No one is reliant on you to be in a certain place at a certain time. That's very freeing. I like that.
We'll talk about the science behind the goggles in a minute, but I'm really interested in the idea that you were a professional swimmer, so I presume you'd never had an office job before you retired from the sport, and then you went straight into a swimming product. Did you always know that you wanted to stay in the sport?
Not at all, honestly. I didn't. That didn't occur to me until we sat down and talked together. It wasn't something that I wanted to pursue. Like I know that I have to find a product in swimming that
Yeah.
I can go and work with. But I'm so happy that it happened. I think I just I really had a deep love for swimming. That was my whole life for so many years, and I knew that I needed something to sort of replace that
Mm.
and to have some sort of purpose because you really need to have be very driven and find a purpose in swimming to get up every morning for morning practice and those long drilling sessions and training camps and all of that. So finding something that replaced that in sort of level of importance work wise, something that I could strive towards and find purpose in was key more than what it was, I think, at
Yeah,
that
yeah.
time. Yeah.
That sounds great. And is your office full of pictures of swimming and swimmers and you diving off a block and all that sort of stuff?
Not yet, but it will be.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'm glad.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the science then behind the goggles because it's really fascinating. I mean, so how it works is you order a pair of goggles, you then download the app, and then you take a scan of your face in so many different ways, and the machine then literally makes a custom fit pair of goggles for you. I've tried it; they fit absolutely perfectly. So, how did you create the app? And again, was that something that you had to get, I assume, third party help from as well?
So now we're getting into the detailed stuff, and I like that. It's so we knew that we wanted the measurement part of the like when you're gonna make a custom product, you need to measure people some way, right? And we knew that we wanted to do that with the least amount of friction possible. Before us, I think maybe the only other custom thing you could get was custom insoles, and then often you would have to go to the store and you sort of put your foot into a foot scanner, and then they would measure everything. But then you need to buy a foot scanner, and you can't ship out a foot scanner to everybody and be like, or a face scanner and be like, hey, scan your face with this one, and then send it back
Yes.
afterwards. That doesn't work. Too much friction. So we know that everyone has smartphones and used to taking selfies and doing all that stuff. So we had to figure out, okay, how can we actually scan your face with your phone? And luckily, you said the right thing that we need third party help. It's not. I think we were lucky that we got the idea at the right time. Had we gotten this idea 10 years earlier, the technology wouldn't have been ready
Yeah, of
for us. We
course.
just it doesn't exist. Let's put that in the on the shelf and then maybe look at it later. But
Mm.
the technology was actually mature enough to for us to do this. And there's a lot of companies that do facial scanning stuff and also the big phone companies. Think about your Instagram filters or Snapchat filters and all this, how that actually works. It maps out your face and then it adds a layer on top. That's exactly the same thing that happens. So the technology is really helping us in a really, really good way. Cameras are getting better and better. So we had to put that technology into an app. Um, and then what happens is that depends a little bit on which phone you're on and which software you're running. But for most phones, you sort of hold your head still and then you move the phone around to capture different angles. And then that produces You put all those images together from all those different angles, and that produces then the 3D model of your eye socket. And then it actually gets quite precise. You can measure down to millimeters, tens of millimeters even, the distances between your eyes and all those sorts of things. And then that's really what the app is for. Nothing else than that. And honestly, that's not really our secret sauce. A lot of people can do facial scanning and or scan other things, right? And make a 3D model out of that. That's not the difficult part. That's just gathering the data. The difficult part becomes fitting something else to this data set. So now I have a scan of Joe Malone's eye socket. Now I need to fit a pair of swimming goggles to that, and with a 3D model of the swimming goggles. And that's really what, to my knowledge, no other company really has done successful at this time. Not from a scan of a phone at least. I went through a process of doing Invisalign, which is teeth correction. I don't know what that's called, and if that's the correct term, but there they have this big machinery to scan your teeth, and then they give you all these like what are those called? Like the ones that you put on your teeth to sort of correct them.
Retainers.
Retainers, thank you. They give you all these different kinds of plastic retainers, and then you correct your teeth. But that's all from a very expensive piece of equipment. So the difference is really you take data from a phone and you fit something else to it. I think we're the only ones doing that.
That's brilliant. So do you have, is this something that you do yourself, or do you have engineers that work for you now?
That's all us. That's me, Bo, and Rasmus having developed all that. Bo is an engineer, as I think we said earlier, and he's really good with computers. He's brilliant, to be honest. And me and him, I have all the knowledge of how goggles should fit, right? I've worn all the goggles. We had a big group of people that were able to help us test early on, and we only get better. The way that it works is also, if you get a pair of goggles and you don't like them, which does happen, we're quite honest about that it happens right now for about 3 to 4% of our customers. We also try to ask people, do you like the product or not? And when they've had it for a couple of weeks, the ones that don't like it, they have to go through a feedback process telling us, well, where does the water seep in? Where does the product hurt? Do you have pressure points around your eyes because of the goggles? And that feedback is that's really useful for us, because we can put that back into the algorithm and make it better over time. So next time it will meet a face that looks similar to Joe Malone's face, then it will be able to do a better job of finding the right fit for you.
Yeah, that sounds perfect. It's very easy sitting here in my position to imagine that you started this in 2017. Here we are in 2023, and it's just been this perfect linear line of progress, and that you had this whole idea all along. But actually, that's probably not the reality, is it? And here we are talking about the science, and how you gather the data. Was this something that you intended to do from the start, or did you try other things a few years ago and change it along the way?
We were pretty set on the way that we like the process of it, the data capturing and how that would go into an algorithm and sort of fit the product that way. I think the whole roadmap of how to do the process side of things, that hasn't changed. That has remained the same.
Okay.
And I don't expect that to change. What has changed though is details around the product. Right, some of the first ones that we sent out via Kickstarter, the nose pieces would break, or the elastic was super bad, or whatever it was. And that's just super important that you remain honest and true to your customers. And then whenever we were able to fix it, we would send out new ones to the ones that had been complaining about the faulty products, because it's only based on feedback that you're able to improve. So whenever people tell them your honest opinion, even if they scream at you, you really have to take that in and do something with it. Because if you want to scale a product like this, we want to sell millions of goggles eventually, right? Then a mistake or an issue with a product that can cause a problem for 1 in 10 when you've sold 10 goggles, that needs to be corrected pretty fast. Otherwise, you have big issues with down the line, right? So it's a fun process, but we still continue to improve on it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to sell 1 million goggles in the end. How many have you sold so far?
We have about 150,000 customers today, and they spread all over the world, all like, yeah, more than 140 countries, I think.
Brilliant.
So
And
that's
when
that's
when did
nice.
when did you sell your first product?
But that was via Kickstarter. And then when Kickstarter was over, then it's time to create your own website, and that really was in the middle of 2018 that it sort of turned into a standard e-commerce business. Yeah.
Brilliant. So you've talked a lot about the three of you guys, the co-founders. Christina as well, I know is working on all the social media side of things and the marketing. Is there anybody else that you employ?
Sure. We work with club partnerships. So we have a more traditional sales team that actually talks to all of our club partnerships. We're really happy to partner with so many amazing clubs, triathlon, masters club, stuff like that. Then customer service you have to have, obviously. Yeah, there's production. We also worry about production, where we have to produce the product ourselves. So it's actually the full value chain sort of that we take care of. Yeah.
Do you find that your product is more popular with swimmers or triathletes, or is it an even spread?
That's a really good question. I think here in the beginning, it's been relatively easy to talk to triathletes. A lot of the people in our team are also triathletes themselves. I think triathlon in a lot of ways are more focused and more geared towards brands and exposure for brands. There's it's been more difficult to find good avenues to market the product towards swimmers. So I would say right now, good maybe 40% of our customers come from triathlon, and then yeah, a big portion as well, just recreational swimmers,
Mm.
um, who swim once or twice a week
Yeah.
for fitness, and then the rest would be either competitive swimmers, master swimmers, or that sort. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that actually, because I've done a few triathlons myself, and it's a totally different mindset
Mm.
in terms of products and what you wear, and because there's a lot more equipment, of course, in
Hmm.
triathlon. Think about cycling, there's lots of equipment there, not just a bike. And you will often go to when you go to race a triathlon, and there'll be stalls and stalls of products, and it is unbelievable just how much stuff there is. Whereas when you go to a big swimming meet, even a big national meet at masters level, you might have one stall, two stalls, and they'll make custom made products for that competition. But they're not selling, their high end products
Mm.
necessarily. So I'm not surprised at all that triathlon is probably or has been more popular at this point. So in 2021, you went on the show Shark Tank. You secured massive investment from two sharks. What, $1 million? Am I correct there?
That's completely correct. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So again, what inspired you to go on that program, and how far has the business come since that investment?
The first question, what inspired us to get there? I think a lot of people have when they sort of hear about the product the first time, it seems like a good fit for a show like Shark Tank. It's innovative. It's something new. It's the price point is not completely ridiculous. It's a really, it would be a good sell on a show like that. And we were often approached and said, "Oh, this would be something for you." And we also have the Danish equivalent. It's called Lions Den in Denmark, but it's similar. And we actually didn't really think about it early on in the beginning, and then it sort of happened that they actually reached out to us and said, "Hey, we found your
Wow.
product." I don't know if someone in their department was a swimmer, or saw one of our ads or something like that, but they were like, "Hey, do you want to come on the show?" Then you still have to go through
Yeah, of
all
course.
the processes. It's
Yeah.
not like one person in the marketing department says you want to come on and then it's just a done deal. But that was really, then it came on our radar and we were like, well, maybe this is actually a really, really good idea. And then yeah, we had to prepare for TV and all
Mm.
that, and it was a huge deal. Getting $1 million is obviously a really important thing for a startup company like ours. But beyond that, it's also getting the knowledge of two really, really successful businessmen from the show, Robert Herjavec and Mark Cuban. And their teams, they obviously invest in a lot of companies through that show and outside. And they have a huge team of people that are able to help you. So instead of us having to go out and hire an agency to help us with a new business plan or something like that, we can just pull from their resources and get a lot of help that way. So that has been very helpful as well. Besides just the money.
Well, I have to say, I love what you're doing because, you know, being a professional swimmer, it would be so easy, wouldn't it, to retire and do something completely different. And that in itself is fantastic. But the fact that you've stayed in the sport, but you've not gone down the generic route of like becoming a coach or something like that. You've gone into something that is completely innovative and is improving, you know, the feel for swimmers when they're in the water, or triathletes. So no, it's fantastic. And let's talk about some of the athletes that are wearing the goggles then. So there are certainly many of them and a few very standout people. So tell us about some of those athletes.
So I think quite early on, one of the first athletes that really had a bet in us when we weren't anything, that was a triathlete from the US, Ben Canute. He's a really, really good triathlete, one of the best in America on the long distance, the Ironman distance. So that was really huge. And then it was sort of when one athlete opened his eyes to the Magic 5, then other athletes were like, maybe that's not completely wrong what they're doing over there. And then we actually got Jan Frodeno, who's one of the he's probably the world's best triathlete. I'll let the listeners debate that amongst each other if they're triathlon fans, if it's him or some other guy. But Olympic medalist, Olympic champion actually, and multiple time world champion, and he's actually invested in the company.
Brilliant.
And on the swimming side, we have Matt Grevers, who is a 6-time medalist from the Olympics, American swimmer, backstroker, incredibly fast.
Oh, yeah.
And he recently retired though. But then we have a Polish lady, Kasia Wasek, she had a crazy year in the past 1 year here. Before she partnered with us, she'd never won an individual medal at a big championship meet. And in the past year, she has won 3 silvers at European Championships, World Championship Short Course, and World Championship Long Course.
That's the Magic 5.
I won't take too much credit. She's an amazing athlete, but we do joke about maybe the goggles has something to do with it. Yeah. No, it's incredible to be able to work with athletes at that level. They're so focused on the small details, and then them trusting in the product is really it's a big pat on the shoulders. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's only going to get better than that. I'm sure there'll be plenty more athletes wearing them, you know, in the not too distant future. I can imagine. So where do you want to take the Magic 5 next? Obviously, you've got goggles. That's what you're all about. But you do sell swim caps. I can see you're wearing a t-shirt right now. Are there other products that you would like to venture into?
Yeah, I think it makes sense for us to bring on some of the more standard accessories that you would use for swimming that don't necessarily rely on custom fit or would benefit for custom fit. I think if people are using our goggles, why shouldn't they be able to use a pool boy or a kickboard or something like that with branded the Magic 5? So I think we will bring on some of those in the near future. But then the technology is really the future of that is really going into other products where it can really benefit from being custom and taking our know-how on how to apply technology to a product and changing that whole thing and turning it upside down. And that's not going to be in swimming, I presume. So, but I can't disclose too much about that. It's all a work in progress. We also have working with some partnerships. We have a partnership with Canyon that we announced some months ago. It's a big bike brand, and we're doing something there. So outside swimming for the technology and then bringing on some additional non-custom products in swimming is probably what's going to happen. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, look forward to seeing what those are. And all sounds fantastic. I'm glad that you want to keep growing and creating new stuff. That's what it's all about, isn't it? So let's talk about your swimming career. Then you are a retired swimmer now, although I'm sure you do still swim. But you were a breaststroker, 50 and 100, maybe the 200 as well.
Short course, yeah, for sure, not long course.
So what was your, well, out of those three events, what would you say was your strongest?
I really liked doing the 100 breaststroke.
Yeah.
It had a little bit of both the very sprinty stuff you needed to get out fast, and then you also had to work with your lactate levels and making sure that you could perform when you were getting really really tired. It wasn't just a sprint. So I kind of like that. It had for me at least, it had a lot of different aspects that you needed to focus on, and that was intriguing to me. So
Mm.
yeah, and in general, I preferred short course. I was really good on my turns, and I was one of the bigger guys, I would say. So for me, long course was sometimes a bit of a struggle. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. Who were you swimming with out there? Which team were you part of?
I swam most of my career in my hometown club where I grew up. It was a pretty good club. It's called the Farm Swim Team. It's a city, I think 20 kilometers outside or north of Copenhagen. And I grew up there, spent most of my childhood there, and also my teenage years. And I swam there, and then I've been swimming in the United States, different teams, shorter stints. But I spent half a year at Ohio State. I didn't swim on the university team, but I swam at the club team there. And then I've been in, as I mentioned earlier, I've been to Austria and swam at a professional team down there with a lot of really really good swimmers. Yeah, different
Brilliant.
experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And you raced at two European Championships. Which ones were those?
It was the ones in Denmark actually. We've had two in Denmark. We had one in Herning in 2013, and then one in Copenhagen in 2017. So those were both short course European Championships, and just amazing events to race in front of a home crowd.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
Would you say they were the highlights of your racing career?
100%. I that it's just it's different to go out and be part of those big championship meets. There's a whole different atmosphere around it. Like they built a pool in a big arena just for you. That's the crazy thing, right? They build a pool, it takes a week, then they put in all the water, and then you swim your race, and then they tear it all down and then move on to set it up another place. And that just be part of that. You walk in, you know, like a week ago there wasn't a pool here, and this is all because that's where the spectators can be. They can't sit in a normal swim pool environment. There's not space for them there. That's just it's a different vibe, and that was quite huge. But I've also been part of. I've had national titles and national records, and there's a lot when you had a long career, right? I swam from I was 10 till I was 28. And those last maybe 12 years were pretty serious. So it's yeah, it's fun to think back upon, but it's also it's memories now. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and great memories, I'm sure. Do you find that well, the Magic 5 still gives you that kind of buzz that you maybe need as a or the adrenaline boost that you used to get as a swimmer?
Right. That's what I was hinting at earlier. That's a good way to put it. Like when you stop swimming, there's that, well, where's that purpose right
Mm.
now? Right. There's no adrenaline buzz anymore. There's no um you really need to be sure about what it is that you're doing if you want to go out at 5 in the morning and do it. So that I would say that yeah, the Magic 5 has somewhat replaced that, but it's also standing at the block and you're prepared for months and um you're about to enter the water and see how good you will be. That feeling is just that's difficult to replace, man. That's really, really difficult. And even if I just entered a an open water race. I've never done an open water race before. I'm gonna race in Montenegro this fall. It's a 33.3 ultra swim event over 4 days. It's something
Wow,
completely different from
that's very
50
different.
breaststroke and 100
Yes.
breaststroke. But I'm still assuming that I'm gonna get some level of adrenaline. I can already feel when I'm talking about it that I'm a little bit nervous, right? I'll have to actually swim a lot to be able to do that. And still, I'm imagining that it won't have that same like yeah adrenaline when I get to the edge. but it's all good. It's you get older, something else happens in your life, and you move on, right? Yeah,
Well, what happens as you get older and you become a master swimmer? So
exactly.
is that something that you thought about doing?
It's a good. I actually raced one masters meet, but that was still when I was swimming competitively. So I didn't really. I wasn't retired yet, and we we got together some guys and wanted to see if we could beat the world record in the youngest age bracket, and we did in the how do you say 800 free relay, four
Yeah,
times 200,
sure.
and the 4x100 and short course. That was so much fun. Got a little diploma and all that. It was crazy times. Yeah.
Brilliant. So you're doing an open water swim. Are you still hitting the pool quite regularly?
Not as much as I probably should. I came back to swimming a little over a year ago and did a national meet, and that was fun. And then since then, I've barely swam. So it's time. My first practice is gonna be this Thursday. Signed up. A lot of my friends from swimming turned coaches, so I have a lot of opportunity to go and join a swim team and still get in the water. So it's just about going and doing that. And maybe who knows if there's a masters meet along that journey in the next half year, I'll sign up and do it as well.
Yeah, well, I recommend it. And of course, this time it'll be better because you'll be wearing the Magic 5 goggles, right?
100%. Yeah. I never really got to race too much with my goggles because it was right around the time when I quit swimming. Right. So I was able to wear them for the past couple of meets or the last couple of meets that I attended. But then, yeah.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Niklas. That was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed hearing the story. I'm sure everybody else did as well. You can check out the Magic 5 if you go to their website. They're also on social media. I think I've covered all the bases there. So thank you once again. It was a pleasure to have you on, Niklas, and speak to you very soon.
Thank you, Joe. It was a pleasure to be here. Nice talking to you.
Thanks.